Well, hi again. I'm Masha Єфросиніної. I'm the Ukrainian journalist, and I'm very honored to welcome in the MSC studio Mr. James Клеверли, British Foreign Secretary of State since September 2022, as they wrote me, but of course, I know. And in your face, I want to thank UK from all the Ukrainian people for the great support of our country from the first days and even before of the big invasion of Russia on the territory of our beautiful Ukraine. And thank you for visiting Kyiv. You were there. Was it first time for you?
Yeah, it's my first time. So just at the end of last year, it was my first time in Kyiv, first time in Ukraine. And thank you for what you said about the UK support to Ukraine, but I also think that we have to thank the people of Ukraine, because you are not only defending yourselves and defending your country, but you're defending really important international principles. So thank you, and thank you to all the people that have made such a sacrifice.
And your country is not only talking about that we need the support, you're helping us, and that's why I'm honored to have you here. In one of your interviews, I read that you are absolutely confident that Russia will fail. Why are you so confident?
So this really struck me. I said before Russia's latest aggression in February of last year, I said when I was in New York that if Vladimir Putin was foolish enough to invade Ukraine, that the Ukrainian people would defend their homeland ferociously. And I said that, and I was proven right. But what really struck me was when I visited Kyiv, and Dmytro Kuleba, the foreign minister, said that he would take me to lunch. But just on the evening that I was arriving, there was another rocket attack. The water supply was damaged, the electricity supply was knocked out, and I assumed that the restaurant wouldn't be able to provide lunch. But the restaurant hired a generator and brought in bottled water so that they could provide the lunch, because they said that they wanted to show me and their friends internationally they were not going to give up, they would not be beaten, they were going to continue their lives. And that reminded me that your country and the people of your country are determined to defend themselves.
And we're still keeping to be unbroken.
Unbroken, absolutely.
What is the UK doing to support the government of Ukraine for now, after the year of big invasion?
Well, obviously the country, as well as defending itself against this unprovoked and illegal attempted invasion by Russia, the government still needs to run the country. So as well as providing the military support, we're providing humanitarian support. We've provided large-scale generators, because we've seen now that Vladimir Putin is attacking your country's energy infrastructure. We provided ambulances and medical supplies, and we will continue talking regularly with your government, the government of Ukraine, to understand what the country needs, what we can do directly to help Ukraine, and what we can do to speak to our friends and partners internationally to coordinate the help that we give to your country. Because we have to support you until you are successful, until you are victorious, and until this brutal war has come to a conclusion.
Could you? I'm listening to you. You're a big diplomat, as I understand. But how should I, like Ukrainian, react when I hear the word like there is a conflict between Russia and Ukraine? There is a big crisis. A lot of people, I meet them still, who say these words, who don't name it war. Why? Especially political people.
Yeah. I think for many people, particularly people in Europe, we grew up believing that the time of war, the time of tanks being used to read your borders, that was something from the history books. And I think for many people, it's so difficult to understand that what we are seeing is aggression, brutality, rape and murder being used in our continent in this century. And I think for some people, it's so difficult for them to understand it. It's difficult for them to use the word. But it is a war. Vladimir Putin has attempted, and I think this attempt will be unsuccessful. I know it will be unsuccessful. He has attempted to recreate some kind of Russian empire by sending tanks and missiles and bombs into Ukraine. And we should say it for what it is. It is a war, and Ukraine and the Ukrainian people are defending themselves against an attempted invasion. That's what this is, and we must never lose sight of that.
1 year of tragedies, a lot of deaths is pretty much. What are your feelings working here in this conference, listening to your colleagues of the presidents of other countries? What are your feelings? The process further will be faster because we lost a lot of time in the beginning of big invasion, half a year of negotiations, talkings, plans, fear of escalation. 2023, your feelings?
Well, I heard the comments that have been made today by President Macron, by Chancellor Scholz, and by other world leaders, that we need to bring this war to a conclusion, but a successful conclusion where Ukraine is victorious. And the best way of doing that is to support Ukraine with humanitarian aid, with financial aid, but also with military aid. And the recent negotiations in Ramstein about the nature of military aid has meant that we are seeing more commitments already this year than we have seen in last year. I think that's incredibly important because Vladimir Putin has to understand that Ukraine's friends around the world will help Ukraine win this war. And that Putin should realize it quickly, and come to the negotiating table with real intent, in good faith, with a serious desire to negotiate. Sadly, at the moment, we haven't seen that negotiation happen. We haven't seen any credible willingness by Vladimir Putin to enter negotiations properly. But I think that if he realizes, if he understands that Ukraine will get the support it needs until it is victorious, then hopefully he will come to the negotiating table properly and in good faith sooner rather than later.
We all can watch very warm moments of meeting of, chiefs of our countries with Prime Minister and President Zelensky. Did you ever meet like friendship between chiefs of every country, between real friendship, like human friendship?
Well, I think there has been, I think that perhaps a couple of years ago, if you had asked the British people to talk about Ukraine, some of them may have known a little bit about Ukraine.
Yeah, sure.
But I think over this last 12 months, there has been a level of admiration for the Ukrainian people and Ukraine as a country in the hearts of the British people. Thousands of British people have welcomed Ukrainians into their homes, those people who have been fleeing conflict and the destruction of their homes back in Ukraine. And I think what we have seen are political leaders, a huge amount of respect, which is also, I think, increasingly evolved into friendship. When President Zelensky addressed the Houses of Parliament, I've seen British politicians who have met world leaders many, many times over, and some of them were in tears. They were desperate to get photographs with President Zelensky. And this, I think, is because he embodies the determination and the strength and the passion of the Ukrainian people. And that has generated a huge amount of respect in the UK, and I know also in many, many other parts of the world. And there's a real, as I say, affection and respect for him and the people of Ukraine as well.
And a big hope for Ukrainians.
Yeah.
all the Ukrainians now, and we can feel it everywhere in the country, are preoccupied if the whole Europe and West are tired of war and will be tired, or what is the worst thing, will get used to that. In Ukraine, in the center of Europe, there is a genocide. Well, it was 1 year. Well, it can be 2 years. Do you believe that it can happen, that somebody will get used to this?
So I think it is incredibly important. It is essential that we support Ukraine until this war is finished, because we cannot send the message to the world that our support for sovereignty, that our support for territorial integrity, that our support for the UN Charter is time limited. These things are so important that they have to be defended, and they have to be defended for as long as it takes to re-establish their importance. And so we have said, the UK has said, that we need to support Ukraine until this is over and over properly. And increasingly, we're seeing other world leaders echoing that sentiment, because peace and freedom and the rule of law, they can't be things that you're only passionate about for 12, 18 months. You have to be passionate about them every day that they are under threat.
Will new Western weapon is coming soon to Ukraine?
Well, we are. I was recently at a training establishment in the UK where we were training Ukrainian soldiers, and what I've seen is that there is a determination. They were working very, very long days. They were being told to go to sleep and get some rest because they wanted to keep learning, they wanted to keep training. The passion and determination is there in the Ukrainian people. What we need to do as your friends in the international community is to make sure they have the equipment that they need to get the job done. And that's why we're making sure that we supply the ammunition, we supply the tanks, we supply the artillery, we supply the air defense systems to help those brave Ukrainian volunteers that we've helped train and the other members of the international community have helped train to make sure they've got the equipment they need to get the job done.
Sounds like a good plan. Thank you so much for finding time for this interview and for Ukrainian audience right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And see you soon. I hope in Kiev, in Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you.